Since the ink dried on their divorce papers, Angelina Jolie has built an almost unbroken winning streak in the courtroom, systematically outmaneuvering Brad Pitt, in a legal war that has now raged for a decade. Fast forward to 2026, and the narrative has shifted dramatically. Brad Pitt is no longer just fighting for his assets. He is visibly exhausted, emotionally depleted, and reportedly considering the ultimate surrender to his ex-wife. For years, the media focus has been on the staggering $164 million Chateau Miroval dispute. But behind closed doors, it is Jolie's continuous string of strategic legal victories that has cornered the 63-year-old actor. Just recently, in May 2026, Jolie secured yet another major court win, effectively blocking Pitt from accessing highly sensitive private emails and successfully delaying the final trial until late 2027. This guarantees another year and a half of the exact litigation that Pitt has explicitly stated is destroying his personal life and career. However, a multi-million-dollar estate and courtroom setbacks aren't what finally broke Brad Pitt's resolve. The true tipping point is the devastating collapse of his relationship with his 6 children. The familial tension, which escalated significantly following Paxson's 2024 accident, has now evolved into a cold, undeniable reality. The public erasure of the Pitt surname by several of his children has delivered a psychological blow far heavier than any judge's ruling. Now, insider sources indicate an unprecedented move. Brad Pitt is contemplating a total legal truce. Facing the terrifying prospect of permanent family estrangement, he is weighing whether to abandon his fierce legal defense to stop the bleeding. How did Angelina Jolie maintain such an impenetrable legal advantage for nearly 10 years? What are the exact details of her latest 2026 court victory that pushed Pitt to the edge? And most importantly, is Brad Pitt's potential surrender a genuine attempt to salvage his role as a father or a forced retreat in a legal battle he realizes he can never win? Today we are breaking down the complete timeline of Jolie's courtroom dominance and the heartbreaking reality that is forcing Brad Pitt to lay down his arms. The story of Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie is no longer a mere Hollywood romance gone awry. It has evolved into a complex, multi-layered legal case study that has captivated international legal experts and public relations analysts alike. To fully comprehend the gravity of the situation as it stands in 2026, one must objectively look back at the strategic maneuvering that has defined the last 10 years of their lives. When the couple initially announced their separation, the general public and media anticipated a relatively swift resolution, typical of high-profile celebrity divorces, where vast resources usually facilitate quick settlements. However, the reality became a masterclass in legal endurance, primarily driven by the consistent and calculated victories of Angelina Jolie's legal representation. From the very outset of the dissolution of their marriage, the legal strategy employed by Jolie appeared intensely focused on long-term structural positioning rather than immediate short-term compromises. While the divorce was officially and legally finalized late in the year 2024, dissolving the marriage on paper, the protracted war over their substantial shared assets, and most importantly, the custody and relationship dynamics with their children had only just reached its most grueling and complex phase. Legal analysts observing the trajectory of this case have consistently noted that Jolie's representatives effectively utilized the intricate mechanisms of the court system to maintain a protective and dominant barrier. They have consistently won crucial procedural motions that have kept Pitt continuously on the defensive for the better part of a decade. These victories were not merely superficial courtroom arguments over minor details. They were foundational structural victories that dictated the pace, the release of information, and the overall direction of the entire legal process. Pitt, who initially sought joint custody and what he deemed a fair, clean division of their combined assets, found himself constantly navigating a labyrinth of appeals, sealed documents, and indefinitely delayed hearings. This relentless legal pressure has a heavily documented psychological impact, often referred to in legal and psychological circles as litigation fatigue. For Brad Pitt, a man accustomed to a high degree of control over his narrative and his professional environment, being subjected to a decade of restricted access to his children and his financial investments has proven to be an unparalleled test of mental and emotional endurance, one that he now appears to be losing. The epicenter of their current financial and legal conflict is the famed Chateau Miroval, a sprawling, picturesque French estate and vineyard they purchased together during the zenith of their relationship. What was once a symbol of their united future and a shared passion project has now transformed into a bitter 164 million battleground. The core of this specific, highly publicized dispute traces back to Jolie's unilateral decision to sell her 50% stake in the lucrative winery to a subsidiary of the Stoli Group. Pitt's legal team argued vehemently in their filings that this sale directly violated a prior established mutual agreement, claiming that neither party possessed the right to sell their share without the explicit consent of the other. Pitt's ensuing lawsuit described the transaction as a hostile takeover attempt strategically designed to undermine his financial investment and his meticulous years-long management of the international wine brand. However, navigating the intricate, often opaque laws of international corporate ownership combined with celebrity asset division is notoriously difficult and unpredictable. By the beginning of May 2026, the Miroval dispute reached a critical, highly consequential juncture that once again heavily favored Jolie's legal positioning. In a closely watched pre-trial hearing, the presiding judge ruled decisively in favor of Jolie's motion to block Pitt from accessing a substantial trove of private communications and documentation. Pitt's legal team had aggressively argued that these specific emails and records were absolutely essential to proving their case regarding the unauthorized nature of the vineyard share sale and the alleged intent behind it. This denial of discovery motion was a monumental procedural defeat for Pitt, severely limiting his evidentiary arsenal and his ability to construct a compelling offensive argument. Furthermore, capitalizing on this momentum, Jolie's legal counsel successfully petitioned the court to delay the main determining trial until November 2027. This delay is perhaps the most significant tactical victory of the year for Jolie's team. In the realm of high-stakes multi-million-dollar litigation, time is often utilized as a weapon of attrition. Delaying the trial not only exponentially extends the financial drain of premium attorney fees, but more importantly, it deliberately prolongs the psychological torment of unresolved high-profile conflict. Pitt has publicly expressed through formal legal filings that this seemingly endless litigation is systematically destroying his ability to focus on his cinematic career and maintain his personal well-being. The new 2027 timeline guarantees that he will have spent well over a decade fighting for an estate that is now increasingly associated with bitterness, legal wrangling, and intense public scrutiny, entirely overshadowing the artful craftsmanship and peaceful retirement he originally envisioned for the property. Yet, if the potential loss or compromise of a $164 million asset is a deep financial wound, the undeniable alienation of his children is the fatal emotional blow that contextualizes his current state of exhaustion. A thorough journalistic analysis of this decade-long saga reveals that the financial disputes, while massive in scale, are merely a backdrop to a profound familial tragedy. Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie share 6 children, and the erosion of Pitt's relationship with them has been a slow, heavily scrutinized, and seemingly irreversible process. The timeline of their arrangement is marked by several pivotal incidents, but a highly significant turning point occurred recently in 2024. Paxien, one of the couple's adopted sons, was involved in a severe, widely reported traffic accident. During this highly stressful, medically critical and vulnerable period, media reports and insider accounts indicated a distinct, notable lack of presence and direct involvement from Pitt, an absence that highlighted the vast, undeniable chasm that had formed between the actor and his adult and teenage children. The aftermath of this traumatic accident seemed to solidify a unified protective front among the children, aligning them entirely with their mother's camp. This alignment is not merely based on fleeting Hollywood rumors or tabloid speculation. It has manifested in permanent, undeniable legal and public actions. Over the past few years, culminating in the current climate of 2026, multiple children within the Jolie-Pitt family have taken deliberate steps to legally or publicly remove Pitt from their hyphenated surnames. In the context of family psychology, legal identity, and public relations, a child actively discarding a parent's name is the ultimate definitive declaration of estrangement. It is a profound, deeply personal rejection that transcends any financial loss or courtroom ruling. For Pitt, observing his children consciously and publicly erase his legacy from their daily identities has reportedly caused unimaginable grief and a profound sense of powerlessness. The widely accepted narrative of the devoted family-oriented father, which was a cornerstone of his carefully curated public persona for many years, has been thoroughly and systematically dismantled before the eyes of the world. This devastating convergence of financial stalemate, legal exhaustion, procedural defeats, and total emotional devastation brings the narrative directly to the current precarious situation in the summer of 2026. The widely circulating notion that Brad Pitt is preparing to unconditionally surrender is not a hyperbolic exaggeration born of tabloid sensationalism. Rather, it is a highly logical, almost inevitable conclusion drawn from the objective analysis of a man pushed far beyond his psychological limits. Sources intimately connected to the inner workings of the legal proceedings suggest that the veteran actor is now seriously evaluating the cost-benefit ratio of continuing this seemingly unwinnable fight. Analysts must ask, what does a theoretical legal victory in late 2027 actually look like if the agonizing process required to achieve it costs him the last remaining shreds of his mental health, his public reputation, and completely obliterates any minuscule lingering chance of future reconciliation with his children? A complete legal truce, should it occur, would likely involve a substantial, unprecedented financial concession on Pitt's part regarding the Miroval estate. This could mean allowing the Stoli Group to maintain their contested stake without any further legal interference, or reaching a massive definitive buyout settlement that heavily favors Jolie's financial terms, effectively ending the dispute by capitulating to her demands. However, those close to the situation emphasize that Pitt's current internal motivation is no longer driven by financial preservation, corporate pride, or the desire to win in the traditional legal sense. The fundamental shift in his perspective is deeply rooted in a desperate, overwhelming desire for peace and closure. A total surrender in the courtroom might be his only remaining desperate strategy to demonstrate to his estranged children that he is finally willing to prioritize their collective well-being and a cessation of hostilities over his own legal vindication and financial rights. The strategy of raising the white flag in such a high-profile, acrimonious legal battle is incredibly complex and fraught with personal consequences. It requires an individual to publicly accept defeat